In the Age of Empires 2 pro scene, one player has completely dominated S-tier tournaments for the past 3 years. After 11 S-tier tournament wins in a row, Hera has firmly established himself as one of, if not the greatest AOE2 player of all time. Not only this, Hera has also done a lot of work in raising the profile of the game. He produces daily content, streams on Twitch, and produces build orders and guides for players at every ELO bracket. Hera has become the face of Age of Empires 2, and has carved out a role for himself as the approachable champion of AOE2, a true WWE-style babyface and all-round good guy who will smile and shake your hand while he dances around your castle fire with a single archer, killing your vills whilst avoiding arrow fire and laughing maniacally in the background. Hera's skill in this game is undeniable. There seems to be nothing that he does not excel at, whether it's his efficient macro play, how he micros his armies, his overarching strategic sense, and his general refusal to die when it seems someone might finally beat him. It seems that Hera does not have a weakness, so I decided to find out if that was true. In order to do this, I wanted to look at the data. It is important to mention that Hera does not win all tournaments. There are A-tier tournaments where Hera either does not compete or has not won, but when it comes to S-tier tournaments, Hera is a different beast. This is where I'm going to focus my analysis. I'm not including ranked 1v1 ladder games or any tournaments below S-tier, because at this point the top pros use these to either test strategies or just to have fun, if they even compete in them at all. So I have created a database of over 2,000 S-tier tournament games since the beginning of 2023. This covers 12 tournaments, only one of which Hera didn't win. This data includes all games within the main event, so everything from round 1, but excluding the qualifiers. It includes all civilizations that are picked, all maps played, and those maps have been split into 7 map types. Those map types are closed maps, like Arena, where opponents begin with defenses already built, semi-open maps, like Arabia, where opponents don't begin with defenses, but bases are easily wallable. Open maps like Land Madness, where there are no defenses and it's difficult to wall. Chaotic maps like Chaos Pit, where opponents spawn close together or there is an early battle for map control or resources. Hybrid maps like Cross or Copenhagen, which feature both land and water. Water maps like Islands or Migration that encourages water play. And finally, Nomad maps, where players begin without a TC. What I looked for in the data are map types or civilizations where Hera is not the number one player. Are there any civilizations he chooses that aren't optimal for him? Are there any map types he struggles with compared to his opponents? Is there any way to stop this man's reign of terror over the AOE2 S-tier tournament scene? Well, first of all, there are definitely areas where Hera can be better, but what I found out is that this is inconsequential, as the only person really competing with Hera is, well, Hera. By almost every metric, Hera is way ahead of his nearest competition. So let's start by looking at Hera's overall win rate. Hera's individual match win rate in S-tier tournaments since 2023 is just under 75%. His closest competitor in this metric is the Viper, who is at 60%. And to put this into further perspective, this is how the top 10 looks, where the majority hover around 50%. This one might have been obvious. Obviously the guy who has won the last 11 tournaments in a row is going to be ahead of his competitors, but I was surprised at just how far ahead Hera seems to be in front of his competition. So let's see how Hera compares with specific civilization. These are the top 10 most selected civs in S-tier tournaments since 2023, and each civ's average win rate. This will give us a general idea of how well the civ performs on average versus how well Hera performs with each of these civs. These are the 10 most selected civs and their win rate on average across the tournaments. Now here are Hera's individual win rates with these same civs. There are only 2 civs where Hera underperforms the average, which are the Dravidians and Hindustanis. But if we compare Hera's top 10 most selected civs and his win rate versus the average of the player base, Hera dominates. This shows that Hera knows where his strengths lay, especially with the Chinese where he has a 100% record since 2023. So if you are playing Hera, just ban the Chinese immediately, but feel free to let him play as the Hindustanis or the Dravidians. Comparing to the average is fine, but Hera isn't average and we know this, so it makes more sense to compare Hera to his closest rivals, which, based on win rate since 2023, are Leary, the Viper, and Yo. These are the players Hera has also most often competed with in finals. On civilizations that each player has played at least once in a tournament, Yo has a better win rate than his other 3 competitors on 2 civilizations, and that's the Maya and the Hindustanis. The Viper has a better win rate on 3 civs, and that's the Berbers, Dravidians, and Koreans. Leary has a better win rate than the others on 7 civs, which is the Bengalis, Burgundians, Byzantines, Cumans, Franks, Tatars, and Vikings. Hera has a better win rate across 19 civilizations. That's the Armenians, Aztecs, Bohemians, Chinese, Georgians, Gujaras, Huns, Inca, Italians, Japanese, Khmer, Malay, Malians, Mongols, Persians, Portuguese, Romans, Saracens, and Vietnamese. Hera was also tied with win rate with Leary on Slavs and Turks, and Yo was tied with Leary for Lithuanians. This gets even more interesting when we see the top 20 most selected civs in S-tier tournaments. Of the 20 most selected civs, so generally accepted the 20 most powerful civs in the hands of S-tier players, Hera has a better win rate than his 3 closest competitors, with 65% of them. This shows that Hera has not just mastered his favourite civs, but has mastered the majority of the most powerful civs. So whilst this data isn't encouraging for our other pro players, it does show where pro players should potentially focus their efforts in terms of civ bans and their own personal civ selections to maximise their chances of beating Hera in a 1v1 series. So what about map types? How does Hera fare here? Well, as you might have guessed, Hera dominates. Hera has the best win rate on all maps except for 2, nomad maps and closed maps. Even there, Hera isn't particularly bad, he's just nowhere near as good. He still ranks 2nd for closed map win percentage and has played far more games than running in 1st, and he ranks 7th for nomad win percentage. Outside of this, he ranks 1st for all other map types. So if you are going to beat Hera, you'll want to try to get him on nomad maps and the occasional closed map as often as you possibly can. Ironically, the top civs on average by win rate on nomad maps are Spanish, Portuguese, Huns, Malay, Koreans, Mongols, and Italians, which are almost all in Hera's top win rate civs with the exception of Koreans. So I can't explain why Hera struggles particularly on nomad starts. One thing is clear though, your best chance of beating Hera statistically is getting him to pick Hindustanis on a nomad map. So perhaps Hypnosis is the best tool available here. I went into this analysis wondering if Hera had enough weaknesses for a pro player to exploit. And while I think there are some advantages to be gained, as we have seen, Hera has had some close finals recently against Leary. They are only really going to be exploited by the top players like the Viper, like Leary, and potentially even Yo. Unless there is a new star that skyrockets pretty soon to challenge him for the crown, Hera is likely going to be winning the majority of S-tier tournaments going forward and will continue his impressive streak. Hera is just simply so dominant across so many map types and with so many civilizations that defeating him in a best of 7 or best of 9 game is going to be incredibly tough, because he's going to be better on most maps and most civs than his opponent. I wish I could have offered some more hope to anyone looking for a fresh winner, but you may have to accept that the data suggests Hera isn't going anywhere soon. With the LingYuan Cup beginning in China at the time of recording this, I personally hope we see a fresh winner for something new, but I just don't see it happening based on the data. That's not necessarily a bad thing either. Hera seems to be pulling in more and more eyes onto the scene with his content, and the tournament prize pools keep increasing. As long as the scene and community grow, then that can only be a good thing. Feel free to suggest any metrics you want to see from S-tier tournaments, and I will keep adding to the database to produce more of this type of content. Thank you for watching, and leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video.